Well, there's a popular saying, one day we'll look back and realize these are the good old days. For our next guest, that idea became deeply personal. After a life-changing loss, Russell Daniel felt called to create something that would help kids and families appreciate the moments they're living right now, especially as we enter the holidays filled with family memories. It led him to write his first children's book, These Are the Good Old Days. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. As oftentimes as it happens, something triggers in us, something happens in life that makes you stop and think. And for you, it was the grief that you felt in 2020 when your brother died by suicide.
That's right. Yes. My brother Danny, who is one of the main characters in the book. It's Danny and Grandpa Dan. Grandpa Dan is my 94-year-old grandfather who still lives in San Antonio, and wanted to bring about this idea of these are the good old days, about appreciating the moment while we're still in it, rather than just looking back and saying, oh, those were the good old days, or it will be the good old days whenever XYZ happens. We're living in them right now. Yeah. We can appreciate even the small moments, just sitting around at the table. And part of the book is just hearing your family laughing and talking and realizing these are the good old days right now.
Because you never know when those good old days may come to an end. You know, I just told you before the break, my brother was killed by a drunk driver at 21 years old. He was my younger brother. We never thought he would be the one who would die first in our family, right? And same with you. So I'm going to take a moment right now to talk to families who are missing somebody at that holiday table this year, and your advice on how to get through it. One of them, of course, is to enjoy the moments you have, because you can't do anything about the ones that you will lose.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And just realizing, and actually part of the story, about 3/4 of the way through the book, there's an arc that I particularly like where Grandpa Dan is getting older throughout the story as Danny is growing up. And Grandpa Dan goes to the doctor one day, and the doctor tells Grandpa Dan that he's too old to go on adventures with Danny. Danny thinks that the good old days are over, but he remembers that he still has Grandma Sally, his parents, and his brothers to go on adventures with him. And he reminds himself the best thing he can do is continue believing these are still the good old days. So when I do readings at elementary schools across Texas, that's part of the thing that I mention. It's like, life is always changing. Sometimes the changes are good and we like them. Sometimes we don't like the changes. Yeah. But we can remind ourselves about the people and the family and the friends that we do have in our life, and remember these are still the good old days.
Yeah. Why did you decide to write a children's book instead of an adult book?
I really like the idea and the opportunity to share a message that a lot of people maybe realize later in life. Like, oh, you know what? These are the good old days. And it took me
hindsight 20/20 type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the opportunity to have a child, a young person, grow up with that idea of, you know what? I'm having dinner with my family and I'm 8 years old, and I've heard this from friends who have children. I don't have any sons or anything myself. And they've heard their kid upstairs playing by themselves or with a friend later that evening after reading the book to them, saying, these are the good old days, just completely unprompted and on their own.
Yeah, because today there are so many distractions too, and just the fact, as long as you're alive, you can do something about your situation. I had a friend who works in suicide prevention in particular, and she said, they sought a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and so as long as you're alive, you can enjoy those moments as we're talking about. When we're still around and you're right here, safe and sound, I know that these are the good old days is something that you've said. Was writing like therapy for you?
Well, even on that repeated 4-line phrase, it's repeated 4 times throughout the book, and something that I spend a lot of time on because it's really the crux and the message of the book. These are the good old days when we're all still around and you're right here safe and sound. I know that these are the good old days. And when I was able to put those 4 lines together, I was like, yes, that is exactly, like, while we're all right here and you're safe and sound, just realizing that's what the good old days are about.
Yeah, there's another thing that you said that I know a lot of families are going to hold on to the moments that don't look perfect. When we look at the Hallmark card or a Hallmark movie, we're like, why is that not my family? You get to think of the idea is that everybody's family is all like, hello, Merry Christmas, right? And it's not always like that, but it's okay because it means we're human. It depends on how we respect each other in those moments and realize that that's just life.
And kind of to that idea, about halfway through the book, Danny goes on an adventure by himself. Because in the beginning of the story, it's Danny and Grandpa Dan having adventures together in a very kind of nostalgic way of playing in the creek and looking for rocks and going for a walk in the woods. Danny goes to South America by himself, which is something that I did. So the book is kind of somewhat autobiographical, somewhat fictionalized, and I apply Danny's name to it. And he goes to South America, he's there by himself, and he gets lonely, and also like kind of as a kid, like it's somewhat of an uncomfortable and foreign concept of like, oh, I feel lonely. What is this feeling inside of me? I don't think I like it. And so kind of acknowledging that and calling it out in the book that sometimes that will happen, and you can remember all your friends and family who love you and you love them, and you might not be near them right now, but you'll see them again. And so that's also part of the story.
Before this tragedy happened in your family, how did you look at the good old days? How did you look at the moments that can seem mundane, but now we know are so valuable?
Yes, I love that. So when my brother Danny passed, we all wrote letters that were read at his funeral. And so this was in August of 2020. And even in my letter that was read at his funeral, I had a section called "These Are the Good Old Days." And so way before I started writing the book, kind of that concept had been in my head, and then for sure take on much more meaning and importance after Danny's passing. So started at that point, and then writing, these are the good old days. They were with Danny. They will continue to be because of all the family that I still do have in my life.
It brought up emotions for me because, as I mentioned, my brother was killed, by a drunk driver at 21. But I remember in grade school, I think he was in 3rd grade and I was like in 5th grade, and we did a little Christmas exchange at school. And he goes, "What did you get?" I go, "I got the Tootsie Roll Bank." And I go, "What did you get?" He goes, "I just got a stupid coloring book." And so, but that night, Christmas Eve, we colored in the coloring book. I colored the left page, he colored the right page, and then we said to each other, "Let's do this for the rest of our lives until we're done with the coloring book." It was like 300 pages in the coloring book, and he goes, "Okay." We made a pinky promise that we would color in it every year, and we would write down the year, and then of course it stopped. At one point, but I buried one of the coloring books with him and kept one with me. Now looking back, coloring in a coloring book, so what? Kids color in coloring books all the time, right? But that's how valuable it became to me as a memory because of the words that you said.
That sounds like a children's book about grief. Think about that.
All right.
Think about
all right.
that.
I will call you. We'll do a collab.
Let's collaborate.
All right. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. You can get a copy of Russell Daniels' book, These Are the Good Old Days, at alwaysthegoodoldays.com, alwaysthegoodoldays.com, or wherever books are sold.